It's not just the weather that's a concern on New Year's Eve, obviously, but across the country, police are taking unprecedented security measures to keep us all very safe. All of this as the big holiday comes just 3 months after Las Vegas experienced the worst mass shooting in modern U.S. history. Fox's Brian Yanis is live in Times Square tonight with the story. Hi, Brian.
Good evening, Trish. Well, look, the NYPD says they are aware of an ISIS propaganda video released earlier this week that encourages followers to actually attack intoxicated New Year's Eve revelers. What the NYPD emphasizes, there is no specific credible threat to Times Square or New York City. Nonetheless, this will be the most secure event in Times Square's really history when it comes to New Year's Eve. More vaporwave dogs will be used than ever before to sniff out bombs in the air and on people, and more observation teams with snipers will be put on top of buildings. Also, more police officers will be used inside of the hotels and office towers overlooking Times Square, a response to the Las Vegas attack. But it's not just New York City. Boston is also doing the same thing.
You're going to see some observation offices up on rooftops, both along the waterfront and Copley Square. Unfortunately, that's a new reality after what happened in Las Vegas. We're going to have plenty of EOD bomb assets, whether they be dog and technicians out there.
And despite the weather and the concerns, there's also the preparations that are continuing today. Confetti was dropped in a little bit of a test drop here in Times Square. 25 million pieces of confetti, 3 tons will fall on over 1 million people expected to be here on Sunday night. By the way, the weather, 10 degrees will be here in New York City. It'll be very cold, so bundle up.
It's already very cold. It's getting even colder. Thank you so much, Brian, out there in the cold. Here now with more. Mark Fuhrman is a former LAPD detective and is a Fox News contributor. And Bernard Kerik is the former New York City Police Commissioner. Good to see you both. I'm going to start first with you, Bernie. New York City, lots and lots of people, lots and lots of places for bad people to hide. We know that they're actually trying to ensure that rooftops at hotels are safe from snipers. Where do you begin in a case like this? Because you're trying to protect so many people, and there's so many things that could potentially happen.
Well, Trish, keep in mind, in 2001, in the aftermath of 9/11, that detail in Times Square was about 3,500 manpower. Today, it's in excess of 6,500, close to 7,000.
Okay.
You've got an enormous uniform presence. You have a plainclothes presence. You're going to have EOD personnel, explosives personnel with detection systems. You're going to have biochemical detection systems. You're going to have counter snipers on rooftops. As a result of Las Vegas, we're going to have surveillance teams that we really never had before. And you're going to have a saturation inside the hotels themselves, in and around Times Square, of emergency response personnel that are looking for suspicious packages, characters, and so forth.
Mark, let me ask you, how has Las Vegas and some of these other events changed the way law enforcement approaches these big events?
I'm not sure it's changed it at all. I think it's brought it a little bit more in focus. But, you know, you try to do the most to minimize the threat, but just, I hope you understand, you can minimize the threat, but you can't eliminate it. Just like Bernie's talking about in New York, with this 7,500-man detail, still would not stop Stephen Paddock inside of a residence or a hotel room getting off a significant amount of fire before they engaged him. So, you know, minimizing the threat is important and doing everything you can, but I think everybody should understand that they cannot absolutely say that they can eliminate any threat.
Yeah. I mean, do we need to change our approach to security overall? You think of a country like Israel, Bernie, that really, they go through various steps, additional steps. It can be kind of painful when you live there, but that's the reality of what they face. Much smaller country, obviously. Are we going to get to that point?
You know what, Trish, we're almost to that point as it is. The only thing we don't do is predictive and criminal profiling, a lot like Israel does, because here everybody's scared to death. Somebody's going to say it's racial profiling.
Well,
but
hopefully that's coming to an end, though, Bernie.
Well,
that was in part, I think, why the president is where he is today, because people had it with the PC stuff.
I've been pushing it for a year now. I think it's something that has to be done. Our intelligence capabilities are far better than they've ever been. And we're doing a lot of things here that Israel does. But keep in mind, like Mark said, if somebody's going to slip through the cracks. They can. They do it in Israel. Israel's phenomenal at security, but they will get through the cracks if they try, and we lose sight of one.
Mark, let me ask you, are we any closer to figuring out what happened in Las Vegas, who this guy was? And I mean, there's just so many open-ended questions, and I think that a lot of people feel like they want some closure here. They want to understand why it happened, and they want to know more about who he was and what triggered this.
Well, I think they want a motive. They want a motive because a motive gives them control, so they can actually do something to minimize their own threat, their own exposure, and quite possibly not become a victim. But Stephen Paddock had quite a sterile footprint, but the evidence that he did leave in that room, the one thing that is so extreme was the weapons and the way he acquired them in what amount of time. And I think perhaps that might be the statement that Stephen Paddock was attempting to prove or show or demonstrate the ease and the effective nature of a bump stock on a M4 platform. Is just a ridiculous amount of weapons. But this is what people can't wrap their mind around, why somebody would do this. But unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to quite know the motive in this case.
All right. Well, let's hope everyone stays very safe this New Year's Eve. Thank you so much to both of you for being here.